I'm not here. All right, there I am. Let me get started here with a couple of commercials because I wasn't quite ready yet. I didn't realize I'd been blocked on Facebook from doing lives. I'll have to figure that out at some point. But here we go.
Author Evangelist Corey Thomas, a dedicated servant leader whose weapons are spiritual in nature and volatile in impact. Hot off the press, author Evangelist Corey Thomas's new book, Sound Advice, Music and the Battle for Your Mind, Body, and Soul. Matthew 5:13, ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt has lost his flavor, wherewith shall it be salted? It's author Evangelist Corey Thomas's new book, Sound Advice, Music and the Battle for Your Mind, Body, and Soul. Purchase your copy to help maintain that flavor in your spiritual walk. This book is epic. It's sold on every major online bookstore or go to CoreyThomasMinistries.com. I got my copy. Be sure to get yours. It's author Evangelist Corey Thomas's new book, Sound Advice, Music and the Battle for Your Mind, Body, and Soul. Get your copy today.
All right, everybody. I wanted to get started tonight with a devotion and go from there. The reason, I guess, the new algorithm on Facebook's blocking everything. I had just made a comment. My best friend's mom that if he doesn't answer his door next time I come over, that I would kick it in, and they took that as terroristic threatening. So that's how it goes sometimes. I'm going to switch everything over to YouTube anyway. So, all right, let's start out tonight with this is Celebrate Recovery's daily devotional. I'm on page 275. This is out of the 30th anniversary book, and this is called The Brightness of Light. I have come into the world as a light so that no one who believes in me should stay in darkness. That's John 12:46. Now, here's the devotion. When I was a teenager, my family and I went to visit some famous caves in Missouri. After several hours inside, my eyes became adjusted to the darkness. The problem came when I went back out into the bright sunlight. My eyes actually hurt. It took a long time for them to adjust to normal sunlight. Spiritual darkness has the same effect on our spiritual eyes. We can get so used to the life we lived in the darkness that it may actually be painful when we try to live our lives in the light. Pastor Rick Warren said it well. The truth will set you free, but first, it may make you miserable. When we first bring our hurts, hang-ups, and habits into the light, we may seem too bright to bear. But once we get adjusted to this new way of living, we will never want to return to that darkness. There's so much to see. And there's so much to see and do in the light. For one thing, we can see each other. So the light brings out the isolation and into fellowship. We can't let our fear keep us from all God wants to show us. The prayer for this one is, Father God, my eyes are still weak and in pain from coming out of the darkness into the light. Help me to get used to living comfortably in the light. In Jesus' name, amen. I can equate this to my own life and story really quickly. I lived 26 years in the darkness, and I was explaining this to my group this week that I've always said that I believe in God, and I've always said that I was quote unquote religious. But I also, in saying that, can strongly say that I didn't practice religion. I didn't know how to pray, and I didn't really know how to walk with God. I mean, I knew the Bible back and forth. Raised in the church, went to Catholic school. You know, I could repeat verses, but that doesn't mean I lived the verses. I really lived in what I call the darkness more than night. And I know the last 4 months before I did die last year, it was the darkest I'd ever become. I mean, the true story is I was in a hotel room in Lexington, Kentucky at a place called I think it's called the Oasis. I can't remember, but it's in the Summit. Anyway, it's a swanky hotel. I ended up in these 4 months spending right around $40,000. Um, and that was just strictly drinking. I would get a 1.75 liter bottle of Tito's vodka a day and drink it. I saw no sobriety. I can remember hallucinating, being paranoid. There was no light at all in any of this. And eventually it came crashing down on me when I went to the hospital. I had a .5 alcohol blood alcohol content, which is 2 points above dead right there. Just alone, that's 2 points above dead. I was in full liver and kidney failure. I've said this before. The doctor said I had maybe 3 days to 7 days to live. And I can specifically remember them saying that. It's one of the few cognitive moments I had at the beginning of this. And I did some things differently that I've never done in my life. And I don't think I did these like consciously. Like, for example, I wanted no visitors. I wanted no special Facebook page. I wanted no calls, and et cetera, et cetera. I came to a realization after I was told that that's all the time I had left. I can specifically remember thinking, okay, I've seen my last birthday. I've seen my last Christmas. This and that, and this and that. And somehow, some way, I was not scared. I didn't have a pity party. I didn't turn around and pray for my life. I didn't do any of that. And before that, I was constantly stuck in I'd call it a habit of a pity party. Nothing was ever my fault. Like most who are in substance abuse, everything is somebody else's fault. You never take responsibility for anything. You're a liar. You're a derelict. Through all that, it was, end up months later, and I can't say that I steadily improved when I was in the hospital. I sustained life somehow, and I mean, not eating. There were times where they had to stick a feeding tube in my nose, and it finally got to the point where I couldn't walk or do anything on my own, and that's where they wanted me to go to another place in Lexington, Kentucky called Cardinal Hill, and that was strictly to die comfortably. I refused that, and I went home to die. And for those that haven't heard it, 3 weeks later, after not walking, not doing anything, I thought being at home was going to be great. At least I got to be comfortable and, watch on TV what I wanted to watch and everything else. But it was miserable not being able to move. And, I mean, I can move my upper body, do certain things like a remote control. I weighed 115 pounds. I weigh 180 right now. And, but I just couldn't do anything. I mean, like, something as simple as going to the fridge, that we take for granted. That's all I wanted that day. I remember specifically I wanted a glass of orange juice, and I'd already fired a hospice care, and as I told Nurse Beth at the time that I just want to let him have his way and do what needs to be done. So I was never scared, and I know that a lot of people say that sounding or trying to sound tough. I just had fully embraced the fact that I did this to myself. I took the blame instead of casting the blame, and so when I get all stuck on this, getting this glass of orange juice, I flopped myself out of the bed, hit the floor pretty hard. Did not realize I couldn't get back up. I wasn't thinking of that part. And just sat there and started praying. And this is a much repeated story, but I feel it's important for people to understand. And the time I prayed for about 2.5 hours, asking for forgiveness for different things. And I had big tears coming out of my eyes. Finally, somehow, some way, I got back on the bed, and everything changed from that moment. I got really, really humble, and definitely humble. And this is where it kicked in from, hope. And people were saying, "You're such a strong fighter. You're so strong." I tell people this over and over again, and I wholeheartedly mean this. That was not my strength. None of this was my healing. The reason I'm here is not me. I didn't will myself here. I didn't even will myself to be able to get a glass of orange juice that day. When Jesus picked me up, I had no idea of what a miracle could be, or I remember specifically thinking about, these are stories 2 years ago that I would not have believed. I mean, there's no question. I would have just thought of it as snake oil, for a cure all. But then by the time I got to the doctor and they said, I don't understand this, but you're healing. And I mean, it was very fast after that. It was just a matter of weeks before I was walking, doing things on my own, and into months, I was finally driving again. By January of this year, I was out ready to give my testimony. And what I called at the time was give hope and help others. And sometime during this period, I realized I was doing this to appease others. One place in particular wanted my testimony because I had gone to rehab there, and they wanted me to be one of their success stories. And I can strongly say that's a for-profit organization, and I was not a success. It was after I went there that I came out and died. And I came to realize that we as people, you hear it all the time, all these facilities that deal in substance abuse, they'll say, well, we're here to help you. We're here to help you. No, you're here to assist God. My calling, and it's during this time that, I mean, I could have gone back into auto sales, management, finance, whatever. It's great money. But I've actually just retired, and I said, I'm going to give my life to God. Whatever God calls me to do is where I'm going. And that's where I've been ever since. Right now, I'm in school getting my psychology master's with a focus on substance abuse. And I do that so I'm more well equipped to really, really assist in a diagnostic way. And, to me, you can't assist everybody. You can't expect that. What I do is oftentimes a thankless job. Just yesterday, I went down to the Hope Center in Lexington, Kentucky. Yeah, I got a big bunch of Narcan again, and went around and gave it out. To others, and it's not, I've earned enough trust from people that I'm not shoving this in their face, and giving them horror stories. I'm saying, look, you don't know when you'll run into somebody in the street that may have fallen out. I do know of an actual story like this. A lady saw somebody on the side of the road that nobody was helping, and she happened to have Narcan with her and was able to use it. And the young man, as far as I know, is still alive to this day because of that. But the whole issue with drugs and alcohol is very misunderstood. For example, I don't believe that I would be healed if it was not for Christ. I mean, there's no other explanation, no tomfoolery. There's no. My doctor tells me, she just told me the other day that it is impossible that I've healed how I have. It's impossible. No, everything is possible through God, and I wouldn't trade any of this. I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change my hospital stay. it would not be worth it to lose what I have now, and that is the unconditional love of Christ and the unconditional love of others. People find it a bit offsetting how I do things at times because I really walk in no fear. I can see the darkness I used to not be able to see. But sometimes in my line of God's work is understanding things where, there's a lot of people who will preach Jesus all day and be stealing behind your back. It's truly taking the Lord's name in vain. I know right now, and people ask, why so many people are dying of drugs and alcohol. Well, that's always been a thing that's happened, but it's precipitated by different circumstances. For example, a lot of rehabs will kick out people for no reason if they're on Medicaid or Medicare because they realize those people, it's taking a gamble, but those people can come back in 2 days and they can start the whole program again. And Medicaid, for example, is going to pay for that. So it's kind of double dipping, but what I call it now is a revolving door. um, I don't like to count the people that I went through rehab with, but over half of them are dead now. And it's that revolving door mentality. There is just because you got a piece of paper that says you've been sober for so long or you've graduated some program, it's not worth the paper it was written on or the ink that was used. Um, there's no moving forward plan. People need to be acclimated back into society. And I have no problem with the use of MAT programs, which means medical assisted treatment. And they can use that. Like, for example, somebody, alcoholic like me, well, I used to be an alcoholic. I don't use that term anymore since I've been through all this. I'm a child of God that made some really, really edgy and harsh mistakes. And for whatever reason, God brought me back. And I think it is to tell the truth. I get things misconstrued all the time. If I call somebody out for doing something that I know from experience. I'm 46 years old, 26 years drinking. I do have the experience and the hand of Christ to be able to see through things right and wrong more than I ever have in my life. And, if I'll say something that I know somebody's doing something wrong, there's this mentality in Kentucky, especially, that you're not allowed to say anything because it's gossip. Well, these people are killing people, and I refuse to be a bystander sitting there watching when I knew what was going wrong the entire time. It's not, call it conscience, call it morals and ethics, or call it gossip. I don't care. I don't think free reign is the way this should work. We've got a lot of pastor worship here and church worship, which is inherently wrong in the first place. My first foremost is I speak to Jesus daily, sometimes 10 times a day. Sometimes I'm surprised he doesn't hang up on me, but it works for me. And I've been able to be blessed and granted with a light where I can flat out see through BS and I can see through it clearly. Now, I'll go back to the MAP program real quick. They use, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Suboxone, which is meant to taper you down from heroin, opiates, so on and so on. But the problem is they don't taper anybody down. Suboxone's a heavily addictive drug as well, which at the most, through studies I've been reading, should be used at the most for a 6-month program. And that includes getting used to it, getting used to living without heroin, whether you're shooting, smoking, taking pills, whatever. And then from there, therapy, work a real program. And before you ever leave that program, you should be tapered off Suboxone. but they're not doing that because now there's more grants given for Suboxone and MAT treatment. Matter of fact, you can't really run a recovery center unless you're doing it on your own dime without having a MAT program in place, and that's where your grant comes from the government. So that instills a lot of greed that's going on, and I don't know. Again, to me, I see right through it. I seen my brother alone was on Suboxone and or methadone for over 20 years. I have another family member who's been on it for 12 years already. And this stuff, here's an issue for you, is let's say these people run out of their prescription of Suboxone and they will start going through detox, heavy detox. So a lot of times they'll go back out there and think, well, I'm just going to get, heroin to get off the sickness. And that heroin could be that hour they make that decision could be the last time they take a breath on this earth. And it happens quite a bit. And the misinformation about it all, too, drives me insane. Is a lot of this is blamed on drugs coming through Mexico, which is actually and factually not true. A lot of this is coming through the East Coast now because the top producers, when it comes to fentanyl, the majority killer of everything is China and India, and that comes up through the East Coast, upstate New York, and things like that. So, but I highly doubt we're going to hear Trump talk about building a wall around his hometown. So it's misconstrued so bad that the Hispanic popularity is getting a lot of the blame for it. This is all simple stuff to research yourself, but the thing is people don't research. They listen to their favorite news. They read their conspiracy theory articles and so on and so on. And that's another part of the problem. It's irresponsibility. It really is. And nobody's holding these places that are supposed to be meant for healing. Nobody's holding them accountable for not healing. I know I asked a guy one time, I said, that's great. And, he said he's saving one life at a time every day. And that's great. But where's your memorial page on your website? There's not one. These are just forgotten kind of collateral damage is the way it kind of seems. Excuse me. I don't know how many people on here have personally experienced, but I talked to a lady about a month ago, and her son had just smoked a joint, marijuana, cigarette, whatever you want to call it. I don't care. But that marijuana killed him because it was sprinkled with fentanyl. And I know in my 46 years, I've never, ever heard of a marijuana death before this. But marijuana is very, very secondary. If not, I don't even think it should be involved in it, really. I don't smoke marijuana, but I see a lot of greatness in what could be with the use of marijuana. It's one of those things I have no issue with. Look, we've got alcohol's legal just about everywhere. In Lexington, Kentucky, for example, you can't drive down a road or a highway without seeing signs for it everywhere. And it's just two totally different beasts right there. But so yeah, this kid dies from smoking a joint, and he had no clue. I've researched a lot of this, and it appears that the people that are sprinkling marijuana with fentanyl, first of all, none of these guys are chemists, and none of these guys know the makeup of that stuff. Something as small as a grain of salt is enough to kill two people in pure fentanyl. And that's pretty daggone scary, and that's the way it goes. But my question is, where is the war being fought on this? We've got too many things. I know that Trump's pretty much made it clear right now that he's going to run again in 2024. And in my lifetime, I will never understand And I'm sorry to those who are Republicans. I make it well known that I'm a Democrat, and I make my reasons known. And but this is not about Democrat Republican. Trump really seriously has narcissistic personality disorder traits, symptoms. And I've seen him once when I was watching it, and this lady's interviewing him and showing him like actual video clips of a speech he's made, and he said, "I didn't say that, out of context, fake news." And it just makes me scratch my head. And I've heard different versions of this. Like in the last 6 years, I've seen more racism than I have in my previous 46 years. And people either say they're glad it brought these people to light, and or it's disgusting how many of my friends I didn't know were this way. I do agree with both sides that it's great that it's been brought to light, because it kind of shows the wolf in sheep's clothing when you get to that type of point. But it also, in not being condemned during the last administration, I mean, it was almost celebrated. White pride was, and that really it bothers me as much as I talked about last week. How I've got people who tell me there's no such thing as white privilege. Look, I'm white, always been white, born white. Is there white privilege? Yes, there's plenty of white privilege, and um, to not admit it, to be in denial about that, it's always going to be part of the issue and part of the problem. There's white privilege. Now we've got white replacement theory brought up by these white supremacist organizations, which is, listen, we were always going to be the minority. My mom told me this back in the 80s. And I know I've said this before, but, she said, be kind to everybody because you're going to be the minority in your lifetime. She's right. It doesn't bother me in the least bit. But I know others get up in arms because they're so pro-white, and I'll never get it. I'll never get the people who say I don't see color. I've got that one black best friend. Listen, I'm white. I've got friends. I care about my friends. I kind of do this odd thing where I know them by name and the fruit they bring, and that works really pretty good for me. And it's really a time of trials right now. And, it's, I'd say, really truly check yourself, your morals, and your ethics. And I wholeheartedly mean that. Getting back, this revolving door policy happens in Lexington at a place where my psych nurse worked for 20 years. But when you get this MAT and intensive outpatient going, and it becomes a revolving door, or even if it's inpatient, it becomes a revolving door. There's no such thing as patients anymore. They're products. They're dollar signs, and that's a huge flaw in the system for so much of this. And it's just a mess. I mean, it's really a mess. To go into current events, I've been watching some of the January 6th trials, and even Trump's own daughter, who's been his right hand man or woman, whatever she is. Everybody's a pronoun these days, so I don't know. But even she's said that she knew he lost. And I mean, the dude just got out of control. Here's the point that everybody's missing is, first of all, this was no friendly riot, as some people are saying. What was friendly about that? That's stupid. Even Mike Pence, no, he came within 40 feet of being killed. 40 feet. And, for Trump to instigate that against his own vice president, used to be his friend. And one of the sound clips or emails, I can't remember which one it was, but Trump's even saying, let them in. They're not going to hurt me. Well, here's the kicker to all that. Five people died that had families. They had families, some kids, et cetera, but 5 people died. That's the thing. If this were anybody else inciting a riot, they would probably already be charged with manslaughter. So, I've always had an understanding of the fall of the leader. And like I say many times, Matthew 15:14 is my favorite verse in the Bible. And this is truly the blind leading the blind into a ditch. And how much longer it lasts, I don't know. They've been saying the libs and the Dems have been wanting to take away guns for 40 years. There's been no instance of this happening. None. I heard somebody trying to argue me, and I think I said this last week, that Barack Obama was big into taking guns, and you can sit there and research this yourself. And how many times did Barack Obama talk about seizing guns? Zero. Absolutely zero. The only last time that happened, I've said this again, is last week, and that was during Hurricane Katrina when George Bush oversaw it. And I'm not hating on George Bush by any means. He's a saint among sinners, if you will. But for tonight, that's it for me. I do love everybody. It was just a general confession, just a general talk. Tonight, I'm trying to figure out how to get everything changed up to go to my YouTube channel, since my Facebook has been blocked for the next 28 days, but we'll go through that later. And hey, prayers for lots of people tonight. Prayers for all of us. We're all going through this together. Pray for those filled with hatred. As always, my right hand girl who runs everything on my recovery, my faith-based recovery page, Erica Burke, I always pray for her. Nurse Beth, who has been with me through the good and the bad and everything else. And both of those two suffer from some issues that, I'll tell you what, they're hard chargers. You wouldn't know if you didn't know them at an intimate level. You wouldn't even think anything was wrong with these two. I mean, they're just tough. And I would touch on abortion. All I can say is that I don't believe abortions ever should be a form of birth control. But this realistically wasn't really thought through completely, because I know now this has opened up some floodgates. I saw a case in Texas, one out of Florida, where these guys who had raped children, one of the girls was 12, one was 15, and these men are suing for child custody and back child support, even though one of them was a family member. So I don't know. I think things need to be looked at further, and boundaries need to be set on all of this before we just jump in and make it a thing for the vote. It's become so politicized. I don't know what to say. I know you can go through Numbers 5:11 through 34 and make your own conclusion from there, but really, it's a bunch of archaic men making choices for women's bodies and women's health, and I can't find any freedom in that whatsoever. It is what it is. But again, I love you all. Prayers all the way around, and I shall talk to everybody soon. Thanks for being here tonight, and I'll see you all next Saturday at 8:30.